Mark in the count. The swing arm now coming back as our countdown continues.
Good afternoon or good evening to everybody out there. This is the Brick Something News, not on its usual time. This is a special sort of time slot because we've got a special guest and a special episode. And so I'm Brick Something, and to my left, right, I don't know, it's always weird, is Chris Scott from Grindhouse Toys of the World War Hell toy line. What's going on, Chris?
How you doing, Brick? Thanks for having me on. I'm excited about talking about the toys, and thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I was telling you, and I've sort of put in the press that like there's something special that you're doing with this line that definitely hit me. And I think it says a lot because, as I've mentioned to you already, to full disclosure, I'm not a collector of smaller figs these days. I'm into these weird gigantic toys, right? I think it's because, but back in the day when I was a kid, when I had, my 3.75 Joes and Kenner Star Wars, they were about this size. So I think my brain just wants. But that said, what you're doing, I think, is super special. I've been watching the Kickstarter. I've been watching for a little bit over a year. I think you did some shows back then. It wasn't Joe Fest, but it was it Joe Lanta maybe?
I've done all of those. Yeah, a bunch of shows.
Yeah,
for the last
and I'd
few
seen
years.
some footage of you out in those shows and was seeing things pop up on social media. I was like, damn, those are dope looking figures. And then I was just like, oh, cool looking figures, great sculpts. And then you started showing like how you're displaying stuff. And I was like, oh my God, there's like a whole concept, like the design of everything, the packaging. It's just like, wow, these folks are doing something really cool with World War Hell. So I'm looking forward to talking to you about it today, learning a little bit more about the Kickstarter, talking with the folks in the chat if they have any questions. So for those of you that are in the chat, please, fire those away and I'll try my best to follow along. I'm sometimes not so great at that. But on that note, let's go ahead and say hello to everybody first. And first off, let me jump ahead to this one because he picked up on it. We are kids of the late 70s and 80s. And while the code very special episode might indicate something, that's not the case today. So we're not going to, be going to the bike store or anything weird like that. Blake, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Oz is here. Hello, hello. My Buddy's Customs is here to check out World War Hell. Hopefully not the real kind. We've got J Solo Arts, who picked up on the very special episode earlier. This guy, Wholesome Warlock, Grindhouse Gang, who I know you were hanging out with this past year. In fact, I'd seen their video interview with you, I think, from right around last year. That was awesome.
Very great.
Larry's Geeky World is here. Man, thank you to everybody who's here on a Tuesday. I know I don't normally do this, but it's awesome to see the regulars up in here. And Barasa Collections, hello. So new name to me, probably someone who's very familiar with you, it seems like. And isn't it awesome to kind of see your diehards? Yeah.
It absolutely is. And I love all the enthusiasm. It's so cool.
I love it, man. I love that you're developing that community around what you're doing. Dirk's Designs is here, made it. Huge congratulations to Chris and the rest of the folks at Grindhouse on the Kickstarter funding. Yes. When I had asked you, I think originally when we scheduled, it would have been before it had been funded.
Yeah,
and now here you are. You were telling me it was right around that I didn't realize it was while you were doing your panel at Joe Fest.
Right before the panel actually started. Dirk was the tipping point
awesome.
too, so it's even better. And it was incredible, just super exciting, and just to be there around all the amazing people that were there. And like when I posted, I said, surrounded by friends, and that's what it was. Is all of these awesome people, all of us just hanging out and doing what we love.
Yeah, I mean that is awesome to be in real life, right? Like I've been in situations where we're like hitting stretch goals on a live stream or whatever, and that's already like cool, we're all together. But like to actually be in the room and you're about to talk about your stuff, that's cool. And congratulations to Dirk for being the one to cross that line. I love that. See, look at this guy. Oz was there at Joe Fest this weekend, and I'm glad to hear it, man. These toys. Yeah, let's see. Who else? I can't do raccoon noises, but sure. J-Mac, what's going on, man? Thank you for joining us on a Tuesday afternoon / evening. Absolutely. 2 posted stretch goals at the moment, right? That we're looking at to hit. Okay.
Yep. We were less than 20,000 from the first one, so we're getting close.
Woo. Zio Adams, hello. Hope everything's good in Italia. What's up, buddy? Van is here, man. There's how many of you there of you guys, man? You got like how many accounts? Rob,
there's a lot of purples.
Well, J Rod is. Oops, I meant to click on J Rod. What's going on? Larry just got home 10 minutes ago. Yeah. Again, that Tuesday schedule, and then I haven't. So fair enough. I should be a little bit more confident. Appreciate that. Again, thank you to everybody who's here with us today. For those of you who aren't sort of familiar with what we do, down there and a little bit scrolling through, it's going to say a particular URL that you can go to, and over by Chris's left shoulder, you'll see a QR code. That'll just take you to a document that'll have links to everything that we do, including past shows. I'm a visual person, which is probably why I gravitate to what you're doing. And I love to be able to look at this stuff. And part of the reason I do this show is to kind of tell folks about maybe some toys and other geeky, nerdy things that not a lot of people are talking about, or not enough people are talking about. And I want folks to go there, follow people on social media. In this case, go to the campaign, consider backing, and just like get to know these folks. Because this whole indie toy thing that's happening right now that you're a part of is like hits me on multiple levels as definitely a toy nerd, but also as sort of a creative person, a person who was like, I grew up doing like DIY stuff. I was a punk rock kid. I was like, we did our own zines, we did our own bands, and like booked our own tours. So to see folks being like, I like toys. I remember when I was a kid, design this stuff, and then turn to other folks and say, we're not billionaires. Can you fund this? Is this something you believe in? And just that whole kind of community DIY spirit around it, I think it's dope. So go, follow, do all the things. With that said, let's talk about what you've got going on, sir, both as Grindhouse Toys, brand new toy company, but not new to toys, and World War Hell as a new toy line. Man, I'll get that out correct in a second. But yeah, can we start before that? I kind of alluded to you not being new to toys. I am always curious, the folks I'm talking with, like, how did you get into this? What happened decades ago, or maybe even relatively recent, that turned you into a person that's spending a lot of good money on toys? So like, how did that all happen? And then my understanding is that you've been working behind the scenes to make toys for a while now. Could you share that a little bit with us today?
Sure. Yeah. Pretty much my whole life, I've been into toys since I was a little kid, and definitely a G.I. Joe kid in the beginning of and still am a G.I. Joe kid. But I've never really been too stuck on one type of toy line. I've collected stuff my whole life, from Masters Universe sometimes to Toy Biz, X-Men and Kenner Batman and Aliens, and of course the Joes, like normal Star Wars. I mean, I had a ton of Power of the Force as a kid, and heck, even those big 12-inch figures sometimes, depending on the situation. But I've just always been an action figure guy my whole life, and really never gave it too much up. I got out a little bit, of course, when you get into high school and you're doing your thing, and I was more focused on drawing and art and music, and got into a little bit of work and wanting to do filmmaking, and it just then life kind of happens. I had some kids and doing my life thing for a little while, and over time I just kind of started getting back into customizing and messing with toys. And luckily, I was super fortunate to get to start working with Bill Murphy over at Fresh Monkey Fiction, another amazing indie toy maker.
Yep.
It's been about 3 years now, and I've been working on Operation Monster Force and Naughty or Nice collection, and just tons of different toy companies and lines with either Bill or people like Gavin Hignite. And I got to work with Ben Conway with Skeletron, and just tons of really great indie creators, and just been super fortunate to do that. And then about 2 years ago, I started Grindhouse Toys, and I've made 2 figures so far, with the Dread Trooper being my first figure, and that came in a VHS clamshell case that I sourced locally, so I could try to get that out to people doing that whole DIY right there. And then on my second figure, the Necromancer, I wanted to go full on with the VHS style case, and we actually designed a box. Brian Sauer and I worked on this project and got the Necromancer out, and ended up actually winning an award on the packaging on that, which was awesome. And now we're here at World War Hell, and I wanted to go full force, really just jump right in to it. And here we are, funded and everything.
So when you started out with the Necromancer, and again, I always say I'm a visual person, so it's a crime right now that I don't have those up. So let me go ahead and do that. So how long ago did the Necromancer sort of project happen?
So the Necromancer was out last year at Joe Fest. I did the Dread Trooper, and then the Necromancer. So the Dread Trooper was 2023, and then the Necromancer was 2024. I was able to do a collaboration with Fresh Monkey to utilize the parts, the Eagle Force parts, 4-inch parts. So these were different than what World War Hell is, being an O-ring line, but these were still 1/18 scale. And I came up with these characters, and just wanted to do something really fun for everybody to kind of, have something a little different and kind of that fun show exclusive maybe. And people really took to it, and it all just kind of started snowballing, and we've gotten to this point now.
And at the time, was this like, were you envisioning that you would someday do multiple figures, and this was just sort of you kind of working out, or were you just doing, let's do this one-off kind of exclusive thing and see where it goes? Like, which came first, I guess, the vision of a line, or?
No, it's always been a plan to do my own lines and everything like that. This was just kind of look, hey, this is my first opportunity. Let's jump on it. If I had the chance to get into more earlier, I would have, but this actually ended up working out better to just try to, kind of establish myself with these 2 figures. But it was always the plan to make more and more and more.
People, I know folks who like, oh man, I missed out on these figures. I know that, but that's kind of this game, right? Particularly with the indie thing, like, it's kind of fun. They're fun collectibles. People do their thing. If it's exclusive, there's a limited run, and you then move on to the next project. But these are really cool. I remember seeing these, and they're fantastic figures. And it's really cool to hear that you've gotten those these last couple of years working with other indie toy makers. So like you're seeing how it's done. You've got the background information and kind of been involved in that. Your creative background. You're saying you're into drawing and music and then filmmaking. I heard those 3 things, and I heard those 3 things, and I was like, that's what I was gravitating to. Like, it was clear to me that yes, you had these ideas for characters and figures, but there was so much more that it seemed like wasn't accidentals. Like, these things are coming together. I'm assuming. Well, I'll leave it. What kinds of things, I guess, were you drawing? What kinds of music were you listening to? And what kinds of films were you either watching or envisioning making someday?
You could probably definitely assume on some of that stuff, but
I'd let you share.
So drawing everything. Like, I went through some of my sketches. I did a Toy Addicts interview recently, and I sent off a bunch of pictures of some of my old drawings because I was cracking up, because I drew out like full on, weapons and uniforms and, just stuff I'd come up with when I was a little kid. But I was always drawn G.I. Joes and soldiers or monsters or just any of that kind of fun stuff. And over the years, all that kind of stuff. And then like the music, I've always been a big metalhead or punk rock guy. And, I'm a huge Misfits fan. And, things of that nature, it's always kind of stuck with me. And now like with the movies, of course, definitely lots of over the top horror gore, stuff of that nature. But also, I love, a decent action film. And, all of that stuff kind of has just been thrown into one big crock pot, and put everything together to mix it all. And that's kind of what Grindhouse Toys is all about.
I figured, but I wanted to hear from the source, and it's the same thing. I start the show off, and I may or may not be heavily influenced by music news that I was watching a lot as a kid, and it's like, oh, want to embrace some of that and bring that back, especially for a lot of us from that period who love toys and are now still enjoying toys and wanting to, just kind of like I don't know if reliv's the right word, but just enjoy that time. But this stuff is great. Obviously, Van loves that figure. Here we're hearing here, Necromancer was my first 1/18 scale fig since I was a kid. Now I'm all in. See, that I understand that sentiment. That's why I'm trying to be transparent, because I'm actually putting it out in the universe that I will not be moved beyond the stuff I'm already buying and heavily invested in. But I totally know that temptation, man.
The funny thing is, that's what Van and Jordan were saying too when they were by my booth. They're like, no 1/18th, and now they're all up in there. So
yeah, it's hard because we're in this period where, man, the choices, it feels like it's infinite, which is a great thing. I think it's a really great, healthy thing. But you got to be careful. It's real life. Whether it's Glyos that I'm resisting or Joy Toy stuff or
whatever. I just got a Glyos right here today from Mr. Brandon. So
yeah, but at the end of the day, it's all fuel for inspiration. And okay. Yes. Before we get too far, folks, check out Grindhouse Toys. You see everything. So where I was here, I was scrolling pretty, down pretty deep to get to last year and then 2 years even. You can go back and kind of see. That's what I love about social media, right? We document and we can kind of see the evolution of stuff and the ideas. And so really great stuff there. Let's talk a little bit about so far what it's been like to go around and, build essentially this new line and brand up. So I'm looking at, this is from this weekend at Joe Fest, your booth. Yes. I'm curious, how early did your booth look this together as an idea? Like looks like of the video store, all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. Did it look like this the first couple times you went out? Did you already have that conceptualized, or has that evolved over time?
No, it was always the plan. It was definitely always the plan. I always wanted to make the video store so that people could come in and even still, like, it's not even exactly where I want it yet, because right now we don't have anything to buy. But once we have things to buy, I want it to be more inviting, so you can walk in and grab what you want off the shelves. Just to, again, keep that stuff alive for us and have that fun experience. The first time I actually set up the video store was actually at Toylanta. And I had a few people saying, like, why are you putting up grid wall? Like, what do you you don't have anything to sell? And I'm like, you just wait.
Yeah, there's a reason.
And it's just always been the plan. But I was like, I don't want to wait. The longer I wait, this idea can still work and it's been cool to just see how people react to this experience, even though they can't walk in and buy a toy yet. They can just look at my prototypes but it just still engulfs them so much, and it means a lot to me to see how much joy it brings to them.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. And that's so much of what I've been talking about just today, and about what drew me to what you're doing is one. So in addition to having the nostalgia for it, I am, it's been a long time doing graphic design out here in the West Coast, and doing things like marketing and branding. And when I look at this, I'm just like, man, there's so much thought put into this, and it doesn't feel like hacky. Like, it feels like there's a genuine love for this stuff, and the combination of things, whether that's the Blockbuster references or the tags from Toys R Us. Yeah, like all of this. And the fact that you've got like the laminated membership cards and, you know, like you said, the grid wall. And then for me, a lot like all of this stuff, the posters, working with, you know, these amazing illustrations, but then laying them out in that way that's like, check out these movie posters, or especially the I think I have it elsewhere here, the movie posters and the sort of cardboard stand-up displays.
Yeah.
So tell me more. Like you said, drawing, but are you the sort of art director, graphic designer, like laying stuff out? And I know you're working with illustrators, but are you the person who's
So I have
I
use Brian I try and it's crazy. I use Brian Sauer for him and I work on a lot of things. Like Brian has made all of these cardboard cutouts for me, which has been amazing. But yeah, the posters are you know, the Spectre is done by Tim Barron, and the other one is done by Mark Pennington. But I actually still added stuff to it, and it felt so wrong because I was like drawing blood on there and you know, doing all the layouts and stuff like that. And it's just it feels weird like working on your heroes stuff a little bit, but I don't know. I have a vision for it, so I want to put that in there. And it's just been incredible working on this stuff.
Yeah, what a cool opportunity too. And truth be told, me doing the show, it's like part of it is to have a reason to talk to people like you behind the scenes who are doing the work that like, oh my God, they're doing amazing stuff. And I could just be a consumer, but now I've managed to create a reason for me to sit and meet you and talk with you. And so you're getting to collaborate with people whose work that you've known and been a fan of. And I think that is so cool. All this stuff, man, the what do you call it? The letterboard or whatever. Just it's perfect. It's perfect. And that's definitely what I picked up on.
Yeah. You gotta have all that. And then like the diorama that I just got that recently done up. It's rotating. Cool. I wanted to have something so people could see that. And Jimmy, I met Jimmy HVX Customs at IshCon, and he just killed it on that. Just so many cool, talented people getting to work with.
I really love this. And you're definitely challenging like everybody else in the game to really think about presentation and, you know, and obviously you've got a very unique thing going on here in terms of like there's a reason like all of this thematically works into what you're doing with the toy line. So, and I'm not obviously the only one to pick up on that. I've heard a bunch of people talk about it, but like, look at this, you know, folks here saying the exact same things. Van saying, I keep waiting for him to put up a curtain and have an adult section in his booth, right? There's this notion of the beads or whatever it is. Yeah. I guess it was Blockbuster. That was a little bit more a little different. But yeah, here you go. He's ready to cosplay as
I can see that already. I can already see it.
Yep. That's Pee-wee when the movie store is complete. Man, it's cool. What's up, Blake? Let's see. There was something else. Oh, here. The video store theme was what got me to notice what was on the table, right? And It's smart. Yeah. Do you have a background in like marketing design? Is it more of a homegrown kind of thing? Yeah.
Yeah. Just I've always paid attention to a lot of the details, and it's all, again, like you said, it's the stuff I love. You know, so incorporating all that. And, you know, I worked at a video store for a whole month back, years ago. And I remember
you lasted chasing
that. Yeah, 1 month because it closed. My buddy was like, hey, you want to come work at the video store? And I was like, yes. And then it ended up going out of business. It was Hollywood Video. And I was like, been holding out ever since. And so I was like, you know what, I'll just make my own. So
that's cool. Yeah. Zio saying that cardboard display is pretty cool. Nice touch. What's going on, Nolan? Thanks for hanging out. KJ, what's up? So, talked about like the overall way you're presenting your brand, and again, it's on point. Clearly, people respond to it out of maybe nostalgia for sure, but also it's well executed, right? It's like you clearly reached this point with, at least at your shows, like it's an experience. So I think it's rad. This thing. So good. Who's the artist who did this one?
So Tim Barron. Tim Barron did the art on this. He's done like artwork for Tony Hawk skateboards, and he's done a lot of Super 7 stuff. Just incredible artist. And I met him at Geek Meet Indie, which is Billy Cooper's show up in like outside of Indianapolis. And I was up there in February, and Tim got working on this really quickly. Amazing professional to work with. And I mean, just like look at the lines and how much it pops.
Yeah.
So freaking good. and Brian Sauer did the cutouts on this for me and ended up bringing it from Iowa for me for the show. And he got it all, like the die lines and just everything cut up perfectly, because he's just a master at all of that. And
it's so good. Yeah, the line work is gorgeous, and absolutely cutting the die lines. Oh, very, very cool. I'm curious, how many did you have produced of these things?
Just one right now. It's sitting up here in my upstairs here with me. I got to find a good spot for it though, because it's so dang big.
Yeah, and as you move it around, it's probably going to get banged up every now and then, but that's actually just going to add to the authenticity and charm.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's cool stuff, man. Well, it sounds like it was a good show. Response was good. Let's actually, on that note, let me ask you, like, the folks who maybe were there at Joe Fest more so for like the GI Joe of it all, and let's say like the more nostalgic kind of like collector who's used to forking over money to Hasbro and Mattel or whatever. Did you get any of those folks who like had no idea that like modern O-rings existed? And like, what were those? If so, what were those conversations like? Are they interested? Or are they like, oh, that's not GI Joe?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of people, and I get this a lot, where you get a lot of people who do come into these stores looking for, they want to go hit their old school figures and stuff like that. And I get that. I collect a lot of that as well. But they find something new and fresh, even though it's a fresh but familiar. And I think we're kind of checking all those boxes for them. And so a lot of people don't even realize it's O-ring sometimes until I explain it to them, and then they're more excited to see like an evolution of what they grew up playing with as a kid. And so to see something that they can utilize and still be just like what they had as a kid, but just updated, and they really take to it. And I haven't really had anybody look at it and be like, oh, it's not for me. The only thing I really get is like what you're saying is like, oh, it's not my scale. But what's funny, a lot of times they'll say like, well, I don't collect that scale. And then they look at it and then they go to walk away and they come back and they look at it some more. And I'm like, yeah, it's coming. They're coming back.
Yeah. I can't guarantee that I'm going to successfully not get any of these toys. I've definitely, and I'm especially intrigued by, because you were saying you've updated it beyond the O-ring, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I actually wouldn't mind, like, let's talk about how, so O-ring, maybe if folks aren't super familiar for whatever reason, is my understanding is it goes back to one of my favorite toy lines, which was Micronauts. I was a Micronauts kid back in the day, mainly because I inherited them from uncles. I was born in 76, so it was a little bit before my time. But these were these cool like little figures, 3.75, held together by a tiny little rubber O-ring inside, like holding the waist, the torso, down to the pelvis. And then beyond that, you had this fun, like little stretchy thing. You pull the legs out sometimes or whatever. And then we'd have things like there were the Buck Rogers ones that my brother sort of had, and I kind of inherited, and those were dope. What else was in that? There was like a bunch of stuff coming out of that time.
Chips, I think Chips did it. A-Team, right? I didn't have any
Dukes
of those.
of Hazzard, I forget.
Dukes of Hazzard, I believe. Yeah.
And then eventually, there was, of course, Kenner dropped. They changed things up a little bit and did the 5 POA. And then by the beginning of the 80s, we get GI Joe that really kind of like brought a lot of it back, like that we kind of got back to that for a long while. And so how is this different in terms of like the way you've built? It's like I'm in the articulation section of the Kickstarter, but can you explain to folks how you're building a little bit on the old O-rings?
Yeah, absolutely. So the old school O-ring was pretty limited. I mean, it was great for, again, going against like a Kenner Star Wars being 5 POA, but the O-ring really just, there's something special about that figure. I don't know, maybe like you said, just stretching them a little bit and just how they feel in your hands. But we wanted to build on that. And one of the reasons I did that was more so too, because a lot of people are making modern, and the modern figures have been done amazingly by the Modern Task Force. And so I was like, well, if I'm doing World War II, let's go a little different route. Nobody's really doing an updated art, O-ring figure. And I know there's been kind of a renaissance with the O-ring style figures. And so like James Carter, who's my sculptor on most of this line and who's contributed tremendously, and it wouldn't be here without him. this is his sculpture right here.
Mm.
And so we've started brainstorming everything. And so the articulation, adding those ankles, one of my biggest things that I wanted to make sure that happened was, like, on an O-ring figure, you can't really stand it up
Right.
unless he's like at attention.
Mhm.
It makes it for like those poses and like kind of action scenes. They look kind of like they're leaning, or it's just it's got some charm, of course, but I wanted to give a little bit of, you know, heft to it, a little bit more to it, and get those like wide stances, and just
Yeah.
something a little sillier but yet tough. And so that's what these guys kind of are. And then we have also wrist articulation, but not just a swivel but a pivot,
Yep.
so you can actually get different like gripping hands, and there's also different hands that are going to be switched out. That's another thing that you don't get with O-ring. You know, that's a more of a modern articulation thing, or a 6-inch
Yep.
thing. And then we also added the neck ball, but also the ball at the where it meets the torso, so that you still get a lot more range of motion, but at that smaller scale, which is still very fun, I feel, to get those different poses you wouldn't be able to get. And then we're also adding articulation at the jaw, on the zombies and the
Okay.
skeletons, so you can get that yelling. I mean,
That's
I love
awesome,
skeleton
man.
heads, and so if it's just a closed jaw, it looks cool. But like, if I can
Yeah.
get it yelling too, like, yeah, I want that.
Yeah, I mean, pun intended, I guess, but it brings the skeleton to life, right? You're realizing
Yes.
now that this isn't like a dead thing. This is like a, oh shit, this thing's animated, and these are going to move really, really well. With the bottom neck on the torso, is that mainly a front back pivot with those
Yeah,
two
it
pegs?
still moves in there. That's what's fun about that bottom ball. So like, it's just like an old school Joe, which I have. Like, I got my buddy Skid Mark here. He cracks me up
Yeah,
because that's
the
like
newer
the worst
ones.
name. But
Skid
yeah,
Mark.
like, so see, you could still get all that
Uh-huh.
range of motion, but that's without the ball joint. So you add that ball joint in there on top of that, you're going to get some really good posability on a classic kind of buck.
Yeah, it looks really great, and it really is this interesting sort of blending of the old O-rings and the modern tech. So it's really cool. The hands, I'm assuming they're going to pull right out of here. This looks like,
Yes.
mushroom pegs. So got it.
Yep.
And then you've got your rockers and the ankle. Yeah, that's huge. That was a frustration as a kid, you know, like playing with those things. Like, wait, no, I want to run. I need to. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. And I've had a few people, I've seen a few things on a few comments, like talking about like the ankle rockers, like, oh, I don't know, because, you know, and I get this. I got home this weekend and I see some of my guys fell off my shelves. You know, because sometimes those ankles are usually like, if something's going to fall over, it's because of the ankle rocker, usually, you know, like if something just kind of over time. But a lot of times those figures are very heavy compared to this. I don't think we're having any of those issues.
Yeah, these are going to be really light. There's a lot less heft to these guys. So here's a list of the breakdown and everything. And then, as you point out here, multiple hands for more expressive posing. Very cool. Did I see? But they're all going to come with one head.
Some multiple heads. You know, that's
depending
fun.
on
Like
the
corpse. Yeah, the corpse right there. He comes with the skeleton
right.
head and the zombie head. You know, same with some of the other characters. We'll have different ones you can switch, and you can see the ankles right there, having that, you know, rocker ankle is getting that pose. I mean, no O-ring could do that besides this guy.
They look really good. And on top of that, I think this would be a good time before we get into like character by character, just talking about what you're doing with the actual figures. You've got the articulation, but if I'm looking at this sculpt, man, there's a lot of beautiful, beautiful detail in this.
Yes.
And I know you're working with 3 different sculptors, including Arlen, who I didn't put 2 and 2 together until I heard you mention his name on a different channel. So I was like, and then I saw his name here listed on the site. So can you quickly name check the 3 sculptors, and how did you all kind of iterate on to develop this like overall look and just the final like level of detail on these? Because these are definitely a lot more detailed than most O-ring figures. Yeah,
absolutely. James Carter, like I had said before too, was he's the main one that I worked on this with, and he brought so much skill and level of detail, because all like this whole figure is all Carter right here, on the sculpting, and I wanted as much detail. That was one of my biggest things I want to talk about, was all the detail we could get. And it was funny actually with that, even that head, we first started it where it didn't have the jaw like that. And then we decided let's add the skeleton jaw onto the bottom of that so we could get that same expressive, silliness of that. But it just so much freaking detail. And Carter is just incredible. He's worked for Hasbro on Vintage Collection and the Ghostbusters, and he used to be the sculpt supervisor for Hasbro. And he's also old school wax style, but also now ZBrush and digital sculpting. And I wanted it to feel like it felt like the old figures, but like completely turned up to 11. And like having like that grenade on his harness there, it is. It's still flat behind it, so it's kind of got that old G.I. Joe feel, but yet it's got tons of detail in there. Same with the texture, and these are all just 3D printed prototypes right now, but like knowing like what we can get out of the factory and the tolerances, and even the paint detail, that was a huge thing for us.
That's
is
what I was
being able
gonna
to get
say
as
next.
much, as much paint detail as possible as we can. And we use the same factory as the Mythic Legions, and I know they can do it, which is awesome. Being working with them on Monster Force and other things of that nature. And like the Decapitator, that's actually the same head right there, upper head, as what that figure is. And so it's fun how much paint can bring some of those differences out. But like look at all the nasty little like the teeth on the little claws and just gross horror, and Carter really gets it, and we have fun just talking about this stuff and him sculpting away on all this.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, kudos to to Carter and the team, the sculptors and the painters. Who's handling paints?
I do the painting.
Nice, man.
Yeah,
well done, because like it's obviously there's the sort of B movie 80s horror stuff, and there's so much like texture to that, and lighting, right, is matters. So I love that you're like working in a lot of the shadows and that dramatic lighting built into the paints. Like on these, look at that. It's
all that
really good stuff.
and dirt and gross. And that was another thing I thought, like sometimes figures can look a little messy, right? When they get, if Joy Toy does a really good job at it, but like I've seen stuff where it gets a little grungy, and I found the smoother the plastic, that's when it looks kind of not as good. So you get those wrinkles and you get those really good sculpted detail. It catches the paint so well and just brings everything perfectly together.
Oh, it's really cool, man. I'm respect on to the whole team, to you, the paint. That's fantastic. And then I think other folks are just the overall look, like, even these little like VHS things. Are these going to be accessories? Are they?
I should definitely, I really would love to do something like that. So Jimmy, who did the Dio he's standing in, again, HVX Customs, he just surprised me, and he was like, hey, what do you think about this? And he sent me the Dio. He had all those kind of spread all over it. He's like, I made you some little, Grindhouse Toys videotapes. And I'm like, oh yes, please, I want those. And so he sent me a little bag of them, and I was so excited about that.
That's awesome. Plastics wise, like his hand, that there's something you said there triggered me. What's the plastic going to be like? Is it going to be similar to like the old O-rings in terms of the firmness of the hands, or will it have some give like a lot of modern figs?
Like the modern, it's a PVC plastic. So like on those hands, so that way you can grip things without worrying about the thumb breaking or any of that. So you're going to have the PVC there, and then like that harness where the grenade and everything is, that's also a PVC overlay, which is never an overlay. I don't think has ever been done in O-ring as well.
It's like you're doing the scale, but these figures are pretty much the figures that like I collect. They just happen to be smaller. The way you're building them, the everything, the attention to detail with the paint, the sculpting, which is get behind me, because this is some dangerous stuff you're doing, but it's really cool. And then this 1/18's world building scale. I know you mentioned on a previous stream or video you were doing that you eventually would love to see this line develop so that you could do vehicles and other things. I'm just curious, obviously not expecting details, but are you drawing things out? Do you have ideas already for the kinds of things that the kinds of either vehicles or playsets that might make sense in this world?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I have you're already a bunch there.
I've got, I was going over so many little things. Mark Gerwig, who's another sculptor, he works on Action Force as well. And he did the stand for this and a few accessories so far, but we were talking about it late last night because he's one of the ones who helped me at my booth. And we were going over vehicles and like the huge list of characters that are in the pipeline for what I want to bring to the table. And it's definitely, world building is definitely the reason one of the definite main reasons I wanted to do 1/18 and 3 3/4 was, you know, I want to have this whole world experience. You could have a huge, I love dioramas and, you know, things of that nature. And as much as I love 1/12 as well, because you get so much cool detail out of it, it takes up so much space when you do that.
Yeah. Very cool, man. So I hope that, you know, folks are really thinking about this line, and like it sounds like the plan is to go as far as you can. Story wise and lore wise, I there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of limits on like what you could do. You've built up a world that I think is pretty broad.
Yeah.
So why don't we go ahead and talk a little bit about that? Let's go back to, here is the tagline at the top of the Kickstarter page. They say war is hell. This time it is World War Hell. What's the like overall world and thing that you're trying to create if you had to sort of define the line?
Yeah, I wanted something that was, you know, again, just kind of end of the world, I've always been a sucker for the post-apocalyptic world, but I kind of wanted to do something that was apocalyptic more, not even at the end, after the end of the world, like the end of the world is happening now. And I love the idea of World War II being the time period, instead of it being all technology based, like how it would be if it was like now. I wanted something, because World War II is kind of on that edge of technology where it's a lot of, you know, it's that diesel. I kind of give it that diesel punk feel where, you know, we have, you know, vehicles and stuff, but like it's still very basic. And so there's just something so raw about all of that. And I wanted to bring that to this world. And so it's really a lot of demonic powers have come through to this side of the world. Our main villain, Colonel Malum, who is he's our first stretch goal. He has opened up these circles of hell, which there are 9 being opened. And then, you know, it engulfs the whole world once they're opened up. And you have our good guys, the Cerberus troopers and Cerberus, with also the Devil's Rejects, which is their special forces unit, trying to pretty much fighting a losing battle, trying to stop, you know, hell from coming through and just engulfing everyone.
That's all here on the Kickstarter, which you can find on Kickstarter.com. Just for me and the way I sort of build the show and outreach, you'll see the link. I just threw it into Bitly, and there's like bit.ly/backWWH, if that's easier for folks. But either way, you'll find it. And then, so here's that sort of story you're talking about, and the main characters. You started name checking them. Let's just go and use the time to kind of go through and talk through the different options folks have and anything you want them to know about how the Kickstarter works, etc.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. So this is what I thought of. I was like, okay, what's my first figure? And what if I could only make one figure? What would it be? And what would be the most accessible to everybody? I feel the corpse is that guy. He is multiple options. And I don't know if you're an army builder, but to an extent I am. And I wanted an army building kind of character. And so that corpse is that guy. He's that main bad guy, but also could be character of whatever you want him to be. He's got the zombie head. He's got the skeleton. He's got the different hands. So you can have an army of skeletons. You have an army of zombies. He's got a chainsaw with blood all over it. He's got, you know, the M1 Garand with the bayonet. And then, of course, the blood explosions. You know, you talk world building, you know, you have this. I wanted it to feel very Tarantino-esque, where like a geyser of blood is coming out of the torso there. And so that's this guy kind of in a nutshell, just a complete jerk of, you know, undead soldiers just coming, unstoppable force, you know.
You know what you've got, and I think it's telling. You're like, okay, you know, other lines would be like, we need the big blonde barbarian to be the center. We need whatever, you know, like, okay, what is the one figure that we're going to be from this line? It literally is like this corpse army builder that there's going to be thousands of, and you're like, no, that's front and center. And it does. It's like no other. This figure really captures everything from the scenario, the war, the danger. And so on top of that, you're like, you know, You could do what we saw up here with the what we were looking at earlier with the other head on. But I love that the one you put on like front and center here is that blood's that it's awesome. So that's just going to be on a regular head joint, or is that a neck?
So that'll be like on that neck. So that's what I wanted to do. I thought about something that could just pop on like a head, but I like that this is coming out of the torso, you know. And so these are actually going to come apart like the old Joes. I don't know if you ever did, but like they have like a screw in the back, and that was one of the first things I remember when I learned that. I thought that was the coolest thing. You could put a Joe together in a few minutes, not even. And so same thing's going to be going on with these guys.
So that's the one you've got front and center. And so people back, that'll be $38. And I love, again, the artwork. We've said it, but I can't stop appreciating it. Good job on the weathering. Sometimes when people do the weathering, it just looks canned and, you know, like every shirt at a Target or whatever, but it looks really good. All of this stuff. This is my jam here, man. Like, dude, like I could spend hours to go, okay, how do I capture that idea? Okay. And then just real nerdy thing. I'm assuming you sat here with the shadows too on these and trying to figure out the right way to communicate depth of that sticker.
Oh yeah. Try to make it look like it was actually on there. And the fun thing is too, with this packaging, it's gonna like, I wanted to figure out something that was, you know, a lot of people show renders. These are actually all the painted prototypes that I just cut out in Photoshop and on my iPad and everything and just put it on here. But I still wanted to look like that VHS case. But you know, this won't be the actually front of the package, but I wanted to show everybody what it looked like. But that spine and the rest is pretty similar to what it's going to look like when you get the figure.
Awesome. Okay, so there's the corpse. Then we've got our first name character, Sergeant Graves, effectively the hero that is sort of. Tell us about Sergeant Graves.
He's kind of a pissed off, war-torn soldier. I would kind of maybe go a little anti-hero. He's not really the nicest guy. He is that sword he has right there, Hellfire. It's an actual cursed artifact, and it gives him pretty much eternal life. He can't die while holding it to an extent. I mean, he could die if he really gets killed, and it kind of stab him in the back to an extent also because it lights on fire with Hellfire, which is like the hottest thing you could think of, like a heavy metal lightsaber. But for it to light on fire, he has to completely like drench it in blood of his enemies. So I didn't want some super powered sword, but the problem is, it might last for 5 seconds and might last for 30 minutes. We don't know. He could take out all of the hordes of his enemies, or it could just fizzle out, because if he dies while he's holding it, he goes to hell and gets his soul ripped apart. So he's kind of stuck.
Dude, you're totally selling this. Yeah, you're selling this. You've got the story. Like, I want to see the movie. So I want to see the game, like literally, like, oh god, I gotta power up, so I gotta kill as many, drench this thing in blood, and then anyway. Really cool. Erwin Papa, like an amazing artist himself. Cool figures and sweet packaging art. Yeah.
Thank you.
Check out his artwork if you haven't, dude. Good stuff. DJ 5000. If you live on the East Coast, hell is already here. Yeah, man. Absolutely, I hope you all cool down. And looks like an awesome line for sure. E, what's up, E? Amazing project, great visual touch. Yeah, see it. People picking up on it. It's front and center, like the storytelling from just every inch of this packaging. I was even thinking about, like, you could have easily been like, oh, every packaging is going to be the same, but nah, each character has his own film, so they have their own type treatment or title treatment, right? And tagline, and it's really cool. Everything is right there, which is the challenge. Like, it's a design problem solving challenge. So he looks great.
It's a ton of work.
And I it's not lost on me for sure. These arms, fantastic. I didn't realize this. So what's the arm popping in and out situation?
So it's the same, unscrewing? Like you unscrew the back, pull the arms out, pop the neck, because he'll have a different neck also. I don't show it right there, but because some of the neck has the paint that goes down on it, because grease paint would do that. So the arms will just switch out in the head. I wanted it to have both options for people, because it's apocalyptic war paint, I call it. So if everything, if all the enemies around you are covered to look, or you're either zombies or skeletons, you're not going to just kind of put camo on. You're going to try to blend in as best as possible.
Yeah.
And instead of
just keep cutting until your blood covered and you don't got to worry so much.
That's
about
true.
it.
Nobody would know if you're just covered in blood. And so, and a lot of places would do something where they would go, you know what, let's do 2 versions of graves. We got the one with the war paint and one without. And I didn't want to do that just because I love the character with both looks to them. And I wanted to give those extras to, anybody who wanted to get the figure like that.
So this is again 38, and I gotta say, if you were to tell someone 38 for a 3.75 O-ring, like folks would be like, huh. But you're packing in a lot of not just work for sure and molding and everything, but just like there's a lot of options in here. Again, you said there's even stuff missing like the additional neck. A lot of people hear me say things like that on a stream and they go, oh, you're just shilling, you're trying to make excuses. Like, no, what I'm actually doing is trying to talk to myself to help me feel better about potentially the money I would spend on this. So it's not about you folks. It's good stuff, man. Hellfire Sword, I love it. Sergeant Spectre. Who's Sergeant Spectre?
So Sergeant Spectre is one of the other Devil's Rejects. That's the 2 that we have in the line so far with Graves. He is a ghost that actually haunts that chainsaw machine gun combo called the Devil's Piano, and that's another artifact kind of thing in the game. Or I say game, but in the toy line. So you're talking game, and so he haunts it. And I thought something was just kind of really funny because this guy is practically a Rambo type character who is unstoppable almost, but the problem is he haunts his machine gun, so he doesn't always show up. So his crew will sit there and tote his gear around hoping he's going to be, show up and just do all the damage, but he doesn't always show up.
That's just such cool stories, man. That is really, really cool. That already like sets up the situation, like, oh, okay, cool. Like, if you're playing it or whatever, you're acting it out, you're like, okay, so like, is he gonna show up? I don't know. And, and you got like hundreds of zombies just waiting. We need him. And then cool
Boom,
stuff.
Or not. And then, oh no, we're screwed.
Or not. I'm like, oh, well, that's the end. I'm glossing over just because of time, but this logo is dope too. Is that you? Is that you too?
No. So I did a sketch and I hired an amazing artist, Juan DiGerardo. And he like specializes in rubber hose style animation. So I wanted that to be the feel because it's, it's the 40s. So I wanted to look like cartoon art for them. And it's something that would be on the back of a bomber jacket or on the side of a motorcycle. So,
man, that's killer.
Thank you.
And I love this piece of art. We were already looking at the standee, but that's one of my favorite. It's so striking. Yeah. All right. Let's go to the troops, the Cerberus Trooper. Sorry. So who is this now?
So the Cerberus Trooper these are the good guys. This is like the Cerberus is the supernatural and occult, the allied department of supernatural and occult. They are pretty much the last line of defense. Cerberus is the dog, 3-headed dog that guards, the gates of hell. And so Cerberus, you got land, air, sea, everybody, trying to stop from the different things, kind of that tie to the G.I. Joe feel, hitting all those different areas. And I wanted a good trooper, that could, I love, again, the troop builder feel. And, he has a gas mask, which is anti-possession gas mask. And
of course,
try to stop these demons from getting in there. Chainsaw for cutting up corpses, of course. And he has different heads and different hands, so you can do the different skin tones, and really just kind of out. You put like 10 of these guys and still make them look kind of different from each other and look like an actual battalion or a squad or platoon or something of that nature. And he's also going to have, it doesn't show there, but that Cerberus logo will be on his shoulder as well as a patch. So
really cool. Again, dope design work. I love the font choices. Very cool artwork. Yeah, man, this is
that so good.
Love it. And then we've got these guys who like definitely are gonna feel nostalgic for folks, but of course, in true World War Hell fashion, there's a twist. What's going on with the Green Army Men from Hell?
So the Green Army Men from Hell are kind of a little different because it's not like canon, say World War Hell canon. These are like, say you bought these. This is like 1980s horror movie. Like, the kid brings it home from school, and these are demonic and possessed children's toys, and they want to take over the world. But it's pretty funny being this size. So if you put that next to your desk, that's their real size. They're 1-to-1 scale. And they have that pool of blood, which we will be putting with other figures, but that's now his figure stand. So he has that thing. You can get that pose where he's like holding the rifle above his head, or he has the flamethrower. And I also just love the green blood coming out of his head, even though it's just plastic, and just ridiculous. Think of a horror movie where these like hundreds of these dudes are attacking, the poor babysitter, or something of that nature.
Oh man, it's so fun, and what a brilliant way to reuse your molds and the tooling.
Thank you.
Packaging wise, since this one's at least visually shown like a little plastic with the staples, are you thinking of doing something different with these guys, or?
Yeah. So these won't come in a VHS case. These will actually be something just like this, and like it's laid out kind of,
but like
you
a
can
box.
see everything. But no, it's gonna be the bag, like a bag of Green Army Men. So like, with the hang peg and everything, so that when it's all in there, if you look at it real quick, you're gonna be like, oh, that's a bag of Green Army Men. And with all the accessories. Yeah, so just a little something.
So it'll have
different.
a tray in there to sort of hold everything together.
No, it's all just green plastic. It's not going to be paint. So
something.
it's going to be just like those Green Army Men. And so something that's
wow,
when you're looking at it
man.
on the pegs, it looks like that, and it's I love that nostalgia of say the VHS tapes or anything. But this is another thing that's just like, oh, I want a pack of Green Army Men. And there it is.
Oh, that's brilliant. I didn't think of it that way. I just assumed like, oh, this will be printed on a box. But no, that absolutely makes sense because there is no paint. You're right.
Mm-hmm. So I don't have to worry about that paint rub or any of that stuff. So yeah.
That's some.
And he comes with the most parts, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, like it's like a lot of the different pieces from the other guys.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that trade-off. Oh, but there's no paint. But like, no, but look, got it.
Yep, but he's actually cheaper too, which would be nice. He doesn't have that price.
Oh, that's right, $30. I didn't catch 30.
that. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, see, this retailer's trying to. This is that Toys R Us tax right there.
Yeah, you got to get those clearance prices. Get them lined through it.
Decapitators. These are fun. Tell us about the $20, the $19 decapitators. Look at that packaging. Your Nabisco going on here.
Yeah, so these will actually come in a box. A little box, like a movie theater candy. Nice. Which I thought would be really creepy, especially you open that up and then you got these little bastards coming out of it.
Sure.
And so these are our creatures. G.I. Joe always had little pet companions. I thought something would be a little nastier with the decapitators, and they have 6 legs. And those are actually going to articulate and everything just at the body, and then the head will be on the head ball, so it'll move a little bit like if it was on the figure. It's not going to be, they're not going to be tons of articulation, but you'll get to do some really cool poses and put them, like I want them to swarm figures. I always set them up on the table with them killing Duke.
Nice.
And just something fun. But yes, story lore wise, they actually attack a host and put a parasite into their chest, and then this they kind of produce that way, and then another one goes through your neck. It's nasty, and then the head rips off, and then now is a new one, and it goes off. So they're pretty gross and scary, and it's funny. A lot of ladies and girls will see it and just be like, "Oh, they're so adorable," and I'm just laughing. I'm like, "Exactly, perfect. That's what I'm going for."
So $20 for a 4-pack. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, for the 4-pack,
wow.
and and so yep.
What a cool little packet. And so you mentioned these are heads, like they'll have some movement. So are these actually the same size and compatible? They can swap onto.
Yeah. So you pop that head off and put it on one of the
no kidding, and you can get the other.
Yeah, and even if you just throw it on one of the regular figures, it doesn't have a jaw, but like that's okay. You can make it look like it's just a nasty skeleton dude missing his jaw, or any of those. So again, I love to tear my figures apart. So put them all together. I want everybody to do the same thing.
That's cool, man. All right. And then now we're getting into the stretch goals. So again, you have hit this thing is funded. It's happening. Yes. Everything that we've seen so far, that's being made, folks. So congratulations to everybody who's been involved, and congratulations to you, of course, but you're getting those. Now, if you want more options, let's talk stretch goals. At 97,000, here is the main bad guy. And you mentioned him earlier, Colonel Malum. He is the main dude. And So anything more beyond what you've already said? I'm kind of curious about different heads. Like, what's going on with this character?
So yeah, Colonel Malum is just a really bad individual, and he is pretty much the reason why all of this happens. And so he has the Necrogrimoire, which is his Book of the Dead. There,
Yeah.
yeah, it's got tons of faces stapled to it. He's kind of got a little bit of a theme there. He
Uh-huh.
starts all this by conjuring the Harbinger of Doom into this reality by cutting his own face off.
Oh,
Which is, again, that's pretty messed up. And
you
so, but he's got a
sick.
little,
Whew.
yeah, he's got a little self-conscious issue. So, he has to wear other faces now. He still puts different faces
Ah,
on himself. And those are
okay.
actually masks that go over the head, which is pretty cool. It's like a ballistic mask with like straps, and it goes over, but he's got a, that kind of checks his chainsaw feel to it.
These
Um,
two. And then
yep,
this
yep,
one is a
one's
full
fresh.
mask
That's a
that
full
goes.
head. That's a full
Okay, got
head
it.
that will
Yes, I
switch
was
out.
wondering.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
that
that's eyes.
hooded. Yep, and it's
Mm-hmm.
got the eyes, and you see the teeth, so it's the same face, but like the
Mm-hmm.
it's cut into the mask, so you can see that depth. And he also has, it's hard to see in the image, but he has this demonic hand. It's the logo in the corner of the packaging over his hood. There, it's the Revenant logo up on the top up there, and
Oops. Towards the top. Let's
yep,
see.
you can see that. Yeah, see the
Oh, cool,
hand.
cool, cool.
That's what's over his mask.
Ah, cool. Over here, you just can't see
Yep.
it. It's a little
Yeah,
dark.
I want it to be real subtle.
Yeah,
And
that's very cool.
on the figure, you see it better with the light. So
Yeah, look at all the paint and everything on this. That's really cool. And if you're just joining us for whatever reason and you're here, go back to hear Chris talking about the paint and the idea of types of plastic used, because like essentially what we're seeing here is what you're shooting to replicate in the actual paint jobs of the factory. It's so good. Like looking at all the blood, the hands. Like I love that he doesn't have clean hands. Very cool. And the cape, soft goods, looks like.
yep, soft goods with the wire.
Very cool.
I'm not a fan of plastic capes, and I'm not a fan of also soft goods without the wire, because it's just feels like it's a missed opportunity. And so the Necromancer figure was the first time I did that, and it worked really good. And you just get those dynamic poses, and really just it brings them to life.
Love that. Colonel Malum. Hopefully you get there at 97,000. I think you're going to get there. What do you have? Like another little under 20 days, 19 days?
Yeah, 19 days. Yeah, I think we're
Yeah,
like
man.
19,000 away from him. So
let's go, folks. Spread the word. And then the last one that's on the, oh no, that was it. Is that right?
There's one more. It's just no image yet. The Revenant
Oh, that's right. You mentioned
I was waiting
him in
until
this
it's
one.
funded. That'll be in the next day or two.
Okay.
Hopefully tomorrow I'll have that up for everybody. It'll be another image like the other ones. I've shown him at the shows, the Revenant Horde Trooper, but I want to show what he all is packed out with. And he's like the Stormtrooper for Malum. It's his main army of undead that he's running around. It's more of that German uniform style. So
acronym is for
the horde, the horde occult of ravenous demonic entities. It feels very
I love this
Saturday morning cartoon, but also with a a mature theme to it.
Yeah, with some metal up in there. No, it's it's really cool to see just in general that someone's actually making this happen. Obviously, this is an example of something that actually wouldn't have been made when we were kids. So there's like a million reasons why this should exist, but that alone, like I think, highlights this moment that we're in. Yes, you can get a little bit of the nostalgia. Well, in this case, a lot of the nostalgia, but a little bit of the nostalgia in the O-ring, but in ways that we simply would not have gotten back in the days. And again, that's one of these statements that is on multiple levels. We would have never gotten this content back then. We would have never gotten this level of detail, this paint, the swappability, the parts. It's good stuff. So there you go, man. I think it's safe to say that I'll be backing. I got to for science, for science, man.
That's what I tell myself.
It's good stuff, man. It's really cool, and I am genuinely intrigued by how this will work, because essentially this is the marriage of the O-ring world and the modern figure. I feel like on multiple levels. It's great, man. You're doing good stuff. Congratulations to you, because I know one, you've already been backed, but that you're gonna unlock those other two figures. is there anything else that you'd like folks to know about World War Hell?
Sure. Like real quick, there is 2 figures right now that we show with Malum and Revenant, but there's more, so don't forget. I'm going to actually start teasing more in the next few days, just building up that campaign. Let's try to get that long. I know that last day, that last 72 hours, people start to, I want to back it. I want to get that, still wait until that last minute. And let's try to make that as big as possible so we can unlock as many as we can, because we still have Captain Winchester, and we also have the Harbinger of Doom, which is the last one, because that's the Steamboat Willie. A lot of people really want Steamboat, but
yeah,
oh no, yeah, he's a full on new build, and we don't have any O-ring demons, and I think that should change right now with this figure. And so that's the Revenant Horde Trooper right there.
That's right. Sorry, I realized you have shown these, and let's take a look at these on display at the tables, and again, pristine presentation. Look at all these things. This is mainly what they're going to be. This is what they're going to be coming with. Okay, very cool.
But also more. I don't want to just have a pile of stuff under them. So I just show as much looks clean as possible.
Damn, what a cool figure! And then let's see. This is the main good guy source, and here you go. That's right. Look at you coming out of Orlando over there.
I feel it's appropriate, it's a demon in possess, hiding in the Mickey, or I guess I can't say Mickey, but the Steamboat.
Sure, Steamboat Willie, you can say.
I could say that one. That's where he is, and so I just thought that would be a fun thing, and I like Disney and all that stuff too. But I just thought that would be a really fun kind of twist on the character, with that character coming into public domain. And he's got hooves. He's got the reverse knees. He's got fur. I'm going to show some pictures of him without that soft goods, but that soft goods is like 2 layers. It's got the wire in there, and if anybody's ever seen Steamboat Willie, he's kind of a freaking jerk in that movie, which is only, I think, 12 minutes, something like that. It's not a very long movie, but he's just torturing all the poor little animals, and I was like, you know what, this is that character, and it's hard to see with the light hitting it, but you can see there's a yellow eye in that tear right there. Yep. And so the demonic head that's next to him, that will be the head that's under that mask. And right now we're still working on it at the factory. It's either that mask is going to completely come off, but there's those horns, so I don't know if it'll work perfectly. Worst case scenario, the heads will swap, but it'll still be 2 full pieces, so that it's got the depth and not just like all molded together,
Wow. That's really cool, man. And so there you go. Like you get a sense of what you're shooting for with the stretch goals. I really do think you're going to get there. But so we've seen these, but this is one of the stretch goals. And this is the other stretch goal that isn't even listed on the site right now. Is that right?
Yep. It's not there. There's going to be some teasing up the next few days.
And here's that neck you were talking about, the different neck.
And the full on, he's got brass knuckles, and that's the stand that he's standing on right there. I didn't put that on the pack out just because it took up a lot of space, but that logo stand, which will be painted just like that, will be with every figure, not just some piece of plastic,
The great looking head sculpt. Human head sculpts are tough. Human head sculpts in this scale is really tough. Like, I mean, I'm buying, these larger figures from some of the corporate, big guys, and I'm like, damn, that head's ugly, and then I spend another like $25-$30 to replace it.
Yeah.
So that looks really great. And this guy, look at that. Oh man, that mask on him looks,
and he's really fun too. If you hit that light right, you see those eyes and the teeth in there. It's really as if you're holding it and playing around with it, on your table or your desk or at work or whatever. It's got a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, at quick glance, like if you maybe weren't paying attention to these, or maybe you thought they were Revoltech or something, you wouldn't quickly go, oh, 3.75 O-ring, man. It's really cool. Although I will say that I know you've thrown in some details like the connection point rivets, or maybe not rivets, I heard you say, but you still want to capture some of that nostalgia.
Very cool. Like O-ring, so yeah.
Yeah, look at that, man. They look fantastic. This is Captain Winchester, another one of those that hasn't been shown yet. So it's out there. So you're prepared should you need to unlock more figures. And then if that doesn't happen, I got to assume that this will not be the first wave, and that maybe if for whatever reason, not trying to put bad juju on you, but since you flirt with the occult, I'm sure you can hang. That we'll see these figures one way, shape, or form. Captain Winchester. But have you shared a little bit about his backstory yet?
Yeah,
I think
a little bit. He's a former, he's just, again, that war-torn also soldier, but like he's the head of the ground forces for Cerberus, and
gotcha.
He plays a pretty fun homage to the classic G.I. Joe. It's got that look to him, but I wanted that old, classic war soldier. He's got the cigar. He's got one head without the cigar, so you can have both options. And he's got this nasty scar on his face, and he's just seen some crap. He's just pissed off all the time, and it's just a fun kind of character in the world. So
really cool, man. These are great looking toys. I hope they they just keep going and thrive. And I really, really think you are pushing the envelope and raising the bar, I guess, is the right sort of cliche to say, in terms of what can be done at this scale, in terms of how to present a line, regardless of scale. Just everything is there. The way you're telling the story, folks should take notes, man, because you're doing great stuff.
Thank you.
Right on, man. Well, World War Hell by Grindhouse Toys. This is Chris Scott. Any last thing? Oh, actually, before we close, because I heard you talk about this, I think this is important to hear. You even talking about it with the Mickey, Steamboat Willie head. You're talking about the factory. So to be clear, you've done a lot of this legwork and all that, and you're already talking with the factories. Can you help let people hear that so that they have a sense of where you're at? Production.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to make sure I got as much, like you said, legwork done early, so it wasn't us in development. I didn't want to fund a Kickstarter and then be like, all right, now we're going to go develop the toy line. No, I wanted it as developed as possible. All the sculpting's done. The paint masters are done. Besides, maybe there's some surprises, that I'm working on right now for later. All of that stuff's ready to go. So as soon as we fund, which we have, but as soon as the Kickstarter ends, I'm going to start cutting the tools, which are the molds for the figures. And we're going to go right into that. So it's going to have a shorter time table compared to, having to wait a few years or, because this stuff does take time. So I try to just do a lot of it up front.
And so I think the big takeaway there, I don't want people to get the wrong takeaway. The big takeaway is as much legwork as possible is being done, and as much, ahead of the game you can be. But I also just being involved with other toy lines and just sort of being in the toy tube space where sometimes people get just weird understandings of what's happening, and anything can happen. Things can be delayed for a number of reasons. The factors could switch up, whatever. So just recognize, what I'm hearing from you is you're doing anything and everything you can to expedite this process. But that said, if you're a Kickstarter backer, I always say this to folks, congratulations, because what you're doing is, without you, this wouldn't be happening. You Absolutely. Are the investors, right? But that also comes with hey, you're taking a little bit of ownership, and be patient, be supportive. It's gonna come. And I'm sure, whatever. I clearly, what you're doing, man, on multiple levels. So congratulations. You successfully, and my talking to myself successfully have sold me. It was not even a gag, or it really wasn't. As folks know, if they've watched me enough, they'll watch me go through the Kickstarter thing, and it already says backed and blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't I'm I gotta chill. But you're doing a bunch of really cool things with this project that I got to support for science.
Exactly. But I really appreciate it. That means a lot to me. It's really cool to see somebody get out of their, normal scale or anything, and just to take a chance on something new and fresh, hopefully I think you're really going to love it.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to come and talk to the folks about the show. Thank you to everybody who is joining us today live, and anybody who's going to go check this out later on the replay. I appreciate you. If you're on the replay, I'd really appreciate it if you just tell us what are your responses to what you're seeing here. It's there's a lot there. We covered a lot. So I'm just curious, what stood out to you? Are you going to back? or not. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. Like, subscribe, all of those things are important for the whole YouTube thing. Again, man, Chris, congratulations and thank you. And
thank you. Thank
yes.
you to everybody. Thank you,
Yeah,
to everybody for funding and believing in me. So thank you.
That's what's up. You'll see my name pop up as a backer shortly after this. And then, yeah, I'll put links and all that, folks, at that little thing later. So you are absolutely welcome, Zio and everybody else in the live chat. We are out of here. And so here's what happens. This is how pro this is. I go over here and I take some awkward time to figure it out, and I press this music. And then, yay. All right, folks. Click in the end stream. They may or may not be able to hear me. It gets weird. But goodbye, folks. Go to hell. Go to World War Hell. Back it now. Bye-bye.